Hey people, it's the Transform Your Swim 30-day challenge, week 4 roundup, days 22 to 28. As with the previous weeks, I wanted to do an overview of the week with some additional videos to help illustrate some of the skills, drills or pointers unencumbered by the 60-second time limit. Make sure you check out the previous recaps either on Instagram or YouTube. Day 22 is where we finally get onto the subject of breathing. As a teacher and a coach, the first question that many people come to me and ask about is their breathing, because that's the thing that they notice when they're struggling. But breathing tends to be the symptom rather than the cause of what's going on, because it's affected by your effort, it's affected by your body position, it's affected by what your legs are doing and what your arms are doing. So if you've been following this 30-day challenge, you might find that your breathing's feeling a lot better already. When it comes to breathing, the first thing we want to think about is breathing out, exhaling underwater. And there are two main ways to think about doing this. You either trickle breathe or you explosively breathe. And there's pros and cons to both. Everyone will suit something slightly different, and I couldn't tell you what I do. To trickle breathe, you would think about breathing in when you turn your head, and then when you put your face back in the water, you're going to slowly blow out the air in a little trickle of bubbles. Swim Smooth like to talk about trickle, trickle, breathe. It gives you a bit of rhythm, gives you regularity. It helps build confidence and remove a bit of anxiety. And because you're removing carbon dioxide from the lungs smoothly, it helps keep your body calm. The other alternative is to explosively breathe, which means when you turn your head to take a breath, you breathe in and you hold your breath until you're ready to take that stroke and blow all out in one go before you turn your head to take the next breath. And the benefits of explosively breathing are that you keep a bit more buoyancy. You don't have your mouth open, and therefore you're less likely to get water in your mouth, which as a new swimmer might be something that gives you a bit more confidence. But everybody likes something slightly different, each to their own. I couldn't tell you what I do. I think I swim along with my mouth open, but that's years of swimming experience. Final thing to add to the whole breathing out is that you might change how you breathe out for doing different things. You might trickle breathe whilst you're doing full stroke, but if you're doing a drill like the rotator kick drill from a few days ago, where you're kicking along and moving along fairly slowly, you might choose to hold the air in your lungs to keep the buoyancy and therefore keep your body higher in the water, which makes it a lot easier for when you turn your body to take that breath. Day 23 was all about your breathing action. Earlier in the challenge, there was a day about minimal breathing and holding your breath so that you can keep your stroke nice and smooth. When you put the breathing back into your full stroke, nothing should really change, he says, fingers crossed, apart from turning your head to take that breath. What a lot of people forget, or a lot of people seem to change when they go to breathe, is they go from keeping that body nice and tall and using their core and their hips and shoulders to roll, and then they go to take that breath and the only thing that moves is the head and the neck, and everything else stays pan flat. So which makes it a lot harder to try and turn your head to the side, and means you end up lifting your head. This causes problems, as we've seen. Your hips start to sink and you lose all rhythm and rotation and fluidity. So when you go to breathe, the key is to keep that spine as long as possible, as we have done throughout the rest of the stroke. Keep those hips moving from side to side. They are going to set your rhythm, and they're going to go with every stroke. And then when you need to take that breath, your hips are still going to go to the side, they're going to open up, and that's going to allow you time and space to turn that chin and take a breath. The only addition that I would make to this is that as part of your rhythm, you might choose to think about breathing as your hand comes under your nose here, because that means your body's already opened up, your head's turned to take that breath, and you've already taken that breath by the time your hand comes out of the water and your hand can recover normally. Otherwise, your breath might end up being quite slow or late, and your body might then sink in the water, or you might feel a bit rushed. So it's about bringing that breathing action earlier in the stroke, not necessarily breathing faster, but just breathing earlier in the stroke so you've got time to take that breath and carry on without breaking your rhythm. Day 24 was about bilateral breathing. And is it necessary? Should you be doing it as a swimmer? Bilateral breathing is the process of breathing to both sides, normally alternately. And what that means is that you'll probably take 3 strokes. So you start on your right, you go 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes, and take a breath. And you go 1, 2, 3, and breathe to your right. That is normal bilateral breathing. That's what most people would tend to suggest. And this is a really good skill to have because it helps keep your stroke nice and balanced and even. It means you're more likely to stay in a straight line if you're swimming in open water. And it means that you've got the ability to breathe in both directions. However, if you breathe every 3 strokes, chances are you'll probably only breathe about 20 times a minute. If you run or cycle, you're more likely to breathe somewhere in the region of 40 times a minute, which is twice as much. So you might find yourself quite breathless and struggling for air and struggling to keep going if you only breathe every 3 strokes. If you breathe every 2 strokes, you'll find you're breathing somewhere in the region of 30 times a minute, which is still less than you would do doing your other sports, but it means you've got more air coming into your lungs. So yes, bilateral breathing is a great skill and it's a great option and opportunity to have, but don't feel that you need to be limited by it when that stops your stroke or slows you down. Maybe it might be worth looking at breathing every 2, but breathing every 2 on opposite sides every length or every couple of hundreds or something to give you that variety. Whatever you do, whenever you choose to breathe, make sure that stroke and that rhythm is still the same on both sides and that you're not limiting one shoulder or compensating and overstretching on one arm. Day 25 was another strength exercise to help build awareness and tension and strength in those lat muscles underneath your arms. As we talked about the other day, that's where the big strength is going to come from in your swim. That's why elite swimmers are triangular shaped. All the power is coming from under the arms where they're pressing the water back. This is a dry land exercise. All you're going to do is you're going to hang from a bar or a door frame with your arms shoulder width apart. You're going to pull those shoulders down and away from your ears and just let your body hang. And what you'll find is that your lats underneath your arms are taking a large amount of that strain. This is a great exercise just as it is, and it's a great building block and a stepping stone if you want to be able to do pull-ups. And pull-ups are that natural extension to help build on that strength there and think about pulling your chest and shoulders and chin towards that bar above you. There are obviously steps in between that you can work towards because things like flexibility, mobility, and strength are all things that will allow you, or not as the case may be, to be able to do something like a pull-up. If you're just pulling up on a bar on its own, you might choose to jump up and hold and then slowly lower your body down to help build that strength in your lats. If you're in a gym, you might be able to use resistance bands to help give you that boost up towards the bar, or you might be able to use a pull-up machine, which might take some of the strain, some of the extra weight for you as you pull up and slowly lower down, and you can build that progression. Either way, it's all about building strength in your back muscles and under your arms so that you can then transfer that to the water. Day 26 was a drill that you can use almost as a full stroke option, and it's about promoting body roll, helping finish your stroke at the back end, and helping relax your recovery to improve the path that your hands take over the water. And we're doing a high arm recovery. The recovery is the part of your stroke where the hand comes over the water and places out in front of you. And the high arm means you're thinking about reaching your hand as high over the water as you possibly can, rather than thinking about bending it. The reason this helps with that body roll and finishing a stroke and relaxing your shoulders is that by extending your arm back, you have to push your hands back past your thighs. This will help you accelerate your hands at the back of your stroke, which will naturally help it pop out the water, which in itself will help you speed up. By taking your hand back there to get your hand out the water, you have to have moved your hip and shoulder round out of the water and out of the way. So it helps build that body roll. And by reaching that arm up and over as high as you can, it has to come over straight. So we're not going to swing round the side, and you're less likely to cross over in front of your body. This might help if you have problems with your shoulders and getting a bit stuck and a bit cramped up. At the end of the day, when we come to do full stroke, I don't mind whether your elbow comes over and your hand comes underneath, hand comes around the side a little bit, or comes round all the way over the top, as long as your elbow comes over your shoulder first. And this helps keep your hands and arms nice and relaxed through that recovery, which means that when you go to put your hand in the water, you've got all that strength and all that time to get switched on again and press backwards. Day 27 was all about sighting. We've talked throughout this Transform Your Swim challenge about keeping your chin down, keeping your eyes looking down, keeping that spine nice and long. But when you come to swim open water, you have to look where you're going. And the great thing is you can do this as a drill in the pool to help with your sighting, but also look at what you're doing with your stroke. Initially, swim with your chin on the surface, looking forwards. So this will explain to you or remind you of why you want to keep that head down as much as possible where you can. Keep your eyes fixed on a point out in front of you and swim along as normally as you can. Watch those hands where they enter out in front, whether you swim with a bent elbow or a straighter arm. You can watch where those hands go in front of you and start to pull, so you're not just pushing down towards the bottom or clawing at the water and dragging it backwards. From there, you could do sets or lengths where you swim a few strokes with your head up and then a few strokes with your head down. So you can get used to that transition between looking forwards and looking down again. You could do 10 strokes with your head down, breathing normally. And on that 10th stroke, as your hand hits the water, you're going to push down with your hand a little bit. You're going to push your chin forwards and look where you want to go. Keep your head up for 1 or 2 strokes, and then drop it down into the water and carry on with your normal technique. Day 28, the final day of week 4 of this challenge, was Catchup Drill. Catchup is a drill that's got several different benefits to doing it. As a drill, it allows you to create balance in the stroke. It allows you to make sure that both hands are doing the same thing. It makes sure that your entry point and where you're starting your stroke is good and solid. You can focus on that rather than just swimming aimlessly. And all you're going to do, you're going to start with your arms out in front of you, a few inches below the surface of the water, and your hands are literally going to catch up one to the other to start each stroke. Obviously, by stopping at the end of each stroke, you have that time to think, and that's where the balance comes in. That's where those focus points can come into your stroke. Every stroke has its pros and cons, and the negative side of catch-up is that it creates a stopping point. And obviously, as we swim front crawl, we don't want to stop. We want to keep those arms always moving, not necessarily fast, but constantly moving. So be aware of that when you take that into your full stroke. But every drill has its negative side. And as long as you are aware of that and you're working on those focus points and you're working on the things that you want to get from those drills, it will be a positive thing. Hopefully all those pointers help flesh out the days from this week and give you a bit better understanding and knowledge to take with you for next time you're in the water. Let me know if you've got any questions. Either leave them in the comments below or send me a DM. And don't forget to check back for weeks 1, 2 and 3 for anything that you might have missed. Enjoy the last few days of the challenge.